First, thank you very much for having me. Just quick introduction. I'm Aditya. I head talent acquisition for a company called Informatica. It's a product development company. Been in the industry for about 2 decades. As Praveen said, been speaking on future skills and maybe looking at the crystal ball, trying and understanding what it would look like in the future. And I'm sure all of us are looking at that direction. Great inputs by the panel and the speaker before that. So thank you very much for those inputs. Good inputs from Praveen. I think he stole most of what I needed to speak. So, but I'll still give a quick presentation on, we break it into 2 parts. One is the trends, which I'm trying to see, and these are my inputs, which I've been sharing in some of the colleges and some of the forums. And second one will be the skills, which I feel which is pretty relevant to irrespective of the level and the function we all play from an organization perspective. So I'll just share my screen. And yeah, so I'm assuming you can see my screen. If not, just give a shout out. All right. So, what is future? And I think so the panelists in starting spoke about it, right? Future is not somewhere where you go. You're already sitting in it, and we create our own future. There are many variables to creating future. I think so. You have, look around. There are a lot of things which add on to the individual's future, right? It's the government, it's the people, it's the companies, and a lot of these determine the direction which your future will move in, right? We are living in a data overload world. A lot of information is available on the web, but it's very important that you have the ability to do data analysis and see the patterns and extract the information which is pretty relevant to you, right? So it's your ability to sift through a lot of this data, because data is what will fuel it's a fuel of the future or the present as we speak. So data, making sense out of data, making the right decision, looking at a lot of historical data will help you grow, help you understand some of the future trends as we go further. A lot of the futurists have basically divided it into 3 parts. I think one is the trend analysis. I'm sure all of you read about STEEP, which is nothing but social, technical, environmental, economic, and political. Second one is visioning. You try and vision. I think somebody needs to go on mute. Visioning. Visioning is something which is another way of looking at what the future would need to look like. Scenario developing, I think we have done that. We try and look at the best case scenario, worst case scenario, our optimistic and pessimistic way of looking at things. We look at what the future would look like. So we have that ability we do a lot of scenario building.
The slides are not moving.
Yeah, I am yet to move the slides. Can you see now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so this is the first point I wanted to speak about. I was just giving us analysis before that. So rate of change of technology, the change is moving at, the rate of change of technology is so fast that,
slides we cannot see.
You can't see my slide?
No.
Only
the trends cover page is there.
Okay, can't you see rate of change of technology, which I've written? Or your internet is slow? Anybody else?
We can see it. It's only that the font is very small.
No, I think I could see only the trends now. The first line is rate of technology.
Yeah, it's maybe your internet is a little slower, so please bear with it. Thank you. Rate of change of technology, right? Companies need to adapt to the rate of change of technology. I think so. It's moving at not the pace what we would want to. Organization adoption is slower. There's something called Martek's law, and I think so. I spoke about it in one of the earlier MTC forums, because the rate of change of technology is so fast, the adoption is still slower, right? If you look at your adoption to Zoom, had we not got into a COVID situation, we wouldn't have got into adoption of Zoom or any of this. So we've been pushed into it, and obviously we understand the technology is far more fragmented, right? You have not one singular tool for a lot of things. So uniformity of tool and also the adoption, right? While people can be divided into early adopters and laggards and a lot of other areas, but the rate of adoption to technologies from a company perspective is little more slower. The second point is work shift. As we know that with the development in medicine and a lot of other areas, life expectancy has gone up. It is said that men and women would subsequently live up to 74 to 77. That means they will stay longer in the current generation, and they would want to stay more employed from a longer perspective. You also had the coming of Gen Z, so you have a multi-generation workforce, and all of us understand the expectations from each generation is very different from the next one. So managing such a different varied type of generation will play a very, very important part. I think somebody already talked about having contingent workforce and gig workforce. I will not spend too much time on it. I think that's one of the direction. You have a lot of sites like Upwork and few other places which are growing as we speak. I think that's one of the areas of workforce moving in that direction. But what organization need to manage is how do you manage policies around them, right? How do you manage contingent workforce? How do you manage a gig worker who would only work for a period of time but would want an insurance period for a longer period of time, even if when he or she is not working, right? Flexible work benefits. I think so. We are looking at that's the direction we see a lot of candidates and future employees would want to look at. The world has become far more virtual and mobile thanks to Corona. I think so. We've learned for a fact that work can be done from home. There are more organizations have broken down their teams into being far more agile and far more distributed. It's a candidate-led market, so the employee value proposition from an organization plays a very, very important part. Coming to the age part, I think the people there's a concept called perennials and also a concept called leaning out. It's basically saying phased recruitment of if somebody's going to retire at 60, a lot of organizations are saying that why don't, instead of that, maybe work for a couple of hours, do work. This way, I don't lose the talent. You also continue to be working with the organization for a period of time. Skill gap, I'm sure there's a big topic. If you from campus to corporate, there still continues to be some amount of skill gap, and enough people have spoken about it. There's a lot of technology around, right? So what organizations are trying to do is trying to bridge this skill gap by virtue of understanding what the technology would look like in the future, and how do they train the set of employees into the direction they would want to, and also try and see how many of the employees would pivot into the future of the organization. So in a nutshell, skill gap plus workforce planning plays a very important part in the future. Online learning is another key trend which we are seeing as we go further. I think so. It gives you flexibility, wider selection of programs. There's more accessibility. You have more customized learning, and to quite a bit extent, it's pretty cost effective. There's a big movement from, as we say, more from a me to a we economy, moving from a production based to a shared responsibility. More engaging organizations are more engaging with the state, more community, more citizenship. You have people being aware of what's happening around and making sure they deliver to the goal. We are now living in a more inclusive society. The shift is towards being far more transparent, more sustainable, and more meaningful. Net, we're trying to look at a good life, as I would term the word, right? I think there's issue for more trust and transparency. Companies are working more harder to earn the trust of the organizations. They would want to be more transparent and make sure that a lot of their practices are seen. As we go forward, there is enough research which employees want from understanding what are the practices, what are the policies, how available they are, and the good and the bad. The good part is, there's so much on the web, so you can't get into a situation where you hide about the organization. You have Glassdoor, Google reviews, everything which talks about the organization, which gives to some extent an unbiased unbiased approach towards the organization. Smart tech and IoT, I think there's enough which has been written about it. As humans, we would want to be in control over things. We would want to enable, things beforehand before we even get into it. You have work from home, which we are today. I think the technology has enabled us to work from home to quite a bit of it seamlessly. There's a lot of, look at, physical boundaries, which people are moving away from, right? Today, all of us, at least some of us, work in global teams. And we actually don't feel the pinch when the other person is sitting in a Chicago, because your team member can be sitting in a Chicago or Mexico City. I think it's become more borderless. To tie on to that, I think it's become more global citizen. There is high amount of cultural mobility. It's important that you understand people around. I think one of the asks as we move into future will be from a lot of the employees to try and do a little more of global stints, which will enable them to work in global teams, understand that culture. And, a better world, global sustainable, clean tech, consumption, being aware of it. And as leaders, we would like to rethink what's our strategy, what does the organizations bring to the table, what do we excel on, how are we different, how should we, why should people pick up our products, what's the employee value propositions we get to the table. And there's one very interesting line I've read. I don't know who's written it, but it says that we must make aspirational attainable, sustainable, unsustainable, affordable. So that's one part on the trends. Quickly coming on to some of the future skills. If you look at the skills of the future, right? Complex problem solving. I think so. We've realized for a fact that we are now living in a world where nothing will be so as you would be able to script it, right? It's basically looking at ability to solve problems from a different vantage point and develop an alternate solutions. So these are some of the softer skills which I'm speaking upon. I think critical thinking is just the ability to be far more reflective and more independent in your ability to think and give your inputs. It's the ability to think rationally and clearly. That's the biggest part. Creativity plays. I think this is the part which the difference between us and the machine. I think the creativity is a use of imagination and original ideas, right? Something more inventive. A lot of people in technology, in development, who work on a lot of new products, they need to be far more creative, which will help develop the product far more better. Automation can be a little bit of machine learning, but then looking at a path-through break, you need to be far more creative. People management will play an important part, and as we go further up, because we are already living in an era of people working with people who are either remote or sitting in some other cities or physically sitting in office. Making sure you get things done plays an important part as we move further up. EI, I think so, being aware of your actions and feeling and how they affect the people around you plays an important part. It also means that you value others' opinion. Break it down into basically saying social skills, empathy, motivation, self-regulation, and self-awareness. A lot of the decisions and judgment which we take into account are basically a little more present as we speak, but more futuristically, a lot of the decisions and judgment we will take a lot of things into account of saying that if I take an X judgment, what's the impact on it from a futuristic standpoint? Service orientation. I think the KYC is one of the areas. I think if you ask anybody in bank, but it's your ability to anticipate your customer and give him or her the solution beforehand will play a very, very important part. Your ability to negotiate, get things done, get things delivered, work as an influencer to making sure that both you and the other person are able to achieve their goals will play an important part. I think cognitive flexibility, this is something which has been lately coming up, and it's person who can take various pieces of information and make sense out of it, right? Who can seamlessly shift from being a creative thinker to being far more critical thinker almost instantaneously. The last point is there's a concept called T-shaped learner, and T-shape is nothing but your ability for you to be an SME in one particular area, but also your ability to understand your other functional areas. I'll give an example for me, right? I am an SME in talent acquisition, but that does not mean I don't understand how compensation works or how learning and development works. It's very important I understand the peripheral areas from an understanding, because we will get into a situation where we might land up working in smaller teams and getting things delivered. So it's important while you are an SME in one area, you understand the logic and the concept of your peripheral areas for you to become far more effective in your own work, right? So these are my inputs. I thought I'll maybe quickly share this. I didn't want overload of information because a lot of information has been given by previous panel and the erstwhile speaker, and these are my inputs, which obviously I've come with some experience, and speaking to some of the folks around and some of the certifications which have helped me put these points together. So happy to take any questions which I have the ability to answer. Thank you.
Something on the service orientation in the current context, Aditya.
Sorry, sir?
Could you elaborate on the service orientation, please?
Yeah, so the thing is, right now, at least if you stay in a customer service environment, we predominantly land up doing what is expected out of us from a delivery standpoint. The ability to far-fetch look at what could be delivered in the future and also anticipate what the things would come from a client perspective is what we are trying to look at. From that angle of anticipating, developing solutions where the client won't have even got into is something what I'm referring to.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, more about, I think Manoj said more about, so T-shaped learning, there is enough written about it. So if you look at the world and try and answer it from a very different angle, we will get into a far more fragmented team and agile teams. And tomorrow, I'll give you an example. Today, anybody who's in HR is part of the COVID action team, right? I'm part of some of those conversations. And from a recruiting angle, I'm trying to also help the organization try and build more, more laxity, more be in a position that we are far more fungible. We understand the employees. We also understand the candidates beforehand. Wherein, if I don't do this, which is a little outside my own purview of things, I'll not be able to help the organization. So looking at that, so that's why I said it's good to be an SME, but it's very important that you understand what are the allied corporate areas next to you, which will help you develop as an individual. Don't try and look at only things from your perspective. You need to look from an organization perspective and look at HR. In the current world, HR is in the forefront, right, of every response as we go further up.
Okay, thanks, Aditya. I think quite insightful session, and we will continue to build on these thoughts.